Good afternoon. I am going to discuss about subnet. Okay, why we need subnet in networking concept? So suppose once we are using network, it's unable to manage the whole host at a time. Suppose consider class A. So class A, first 1 byte will be allocated for net ID, the remaining 3 for host ID. Okay, so even 16 million hosts we can able to use in a single network. So unable to maintain all those hosts at a time. That's why we need subnet. Okay, so once the network is subnetted, easy to manage all the hosts in a subnet. Either the network may be subnetted into 2 or even 4 or 8. It depends on our requirements. We can consider any number of subnet. Say for example, consider class C. The given IP addresses, say for example 200.1.2.0. From the given IP, what happened? So from the given IP, you can able to identify the class. This is class C. So consider class C. How many hosts we can able to connect? Totally 256. Okay. So here from 0 to till 256. Whenever this is the range for class C. Okay, for each subnet. But we will never use the first IP address in every range because this is used to identify the network. The last IP always used to identify the broadcast, default broadcast IP address. Okay, so first can be used for what? Identification of network. This is mainly used for broadcasting. So default broadcast address. Okay, suppose say for example when the network is subnetted, okay, subnetted into 2. Assume that this is whole network. The whole network can be divided into 2 of. Okay, this is subnet 1. Assume that this is subnet 2. So the range for each and every subnet is, for example, the starting IP address is 200.1.2. Here 0, it indicates 8-bit address. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, like that here also we have what? 200.1.2. Again 8-bit address 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so you are going to borrow how many bits from the host ID part. From that you should calculate how many subnet we have for the given IP. So I need 2 subnet means I can borrow only 1 bit from the host ID part. So I can take only this part. Okay, so this which is used to identify the subnet. So here 2 subnet, here whenever the first bit is 0, identification of subnet 1, the first bit is 1, identification of subnet 2. Okay, what is the range for subnet 1 as well as subnet 2? Now we have certain range for S1 as well as certain range for S2 from 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, equivalent binary into decimal will be 0. Again 0, here 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. This is 1. Okay, then 1, 0, 2. Okay, this bit always what? 0. Here 0 to all bit will be 7, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So here 127. Okay, from 0 to 127, this is the range for subnet 1. Okay, the first IP address in subnet 1 is always used to identify the subnet, okay, or identify the network for S1. This is the last IP address in this range which is used for broadcasting by default. Okay, suppose 0 to 127, total number of IP will be 128. Out of 128, we will never use 2 IP address because one IP address can be used for identification of network. The last IP address can be used for what? Default broadcast address for S1. So we never use the used IP address always 126. Okay, this is about what? Subnet. What is the range for subnet 1? Consider the another subnet. What is the IP range for another subnet? Here the starting address will be always 200.1.2. Here out of 8 bit, the first 1 bit which is used to identify the subnet. So when the first bit is 1, which indicates what? Subnet 2. Okay, the rest of the bit initially what? 0 0 0. So here 7 0. This is what? 128. Okay, again 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 1 129. Okay, here 1 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 130. Like that we can write the last number will be 1 all ones. Okay, 8 ones here. This is 255. Okay, so the last address in this IP from 200.1.2. The last address here 255. The first IP always what? 0. Right? So this is the range for what? IP address for subnet 2. Okay. Here what happens, still even though we have list of our range for subnet is what? From 200.1.2.128 to till what? 200.1.2.255. So out of this, the first IP address mainly used for identification of subnet 2. The last IP identification of what? Default broadcast address. Okay, so here consider this entire network. Okay, here subnet, when the network is subnetted, in subnet 1 2 IP address will be wasted for S1. Like that, here also 2 IP address will be wasted. Out the whole network, totally we are going to waste what? 4 IP address. Okay, but when the network is subnet, without subnet, what happened? Only 2 IP address we will never use, because the first IP always used for identification of network, the last always used for default broadcast address. Okay, suppose when the network is subnetted, what are the advantage we have? What are the drawback we have? When the network is subnetted, how to route the packet from one node into another node means, first you should identify the network address. Okay, say for example the given IP is 200.1.2, point any value here. So whenever the network address means what? Only we have the net ID part, the host ID part always what? 0. Say for example here 200.1.2.0. This is network ID. Okay, after identification of network ID, we can find subnet ID. Okay, the subnet range is, say for example, from 1 to 126, which indicates what? S1. Okay, say for example the given IP is 200.1.2. For example 75. Okay, 75 means what? This is the range between from here to here. We can identify, after identification of net ID, you can able to identify subnet ID. Okay, subnet address. By default, we can go for what? So this is the range from here to here, so that we go for what? S1 network. Okay, after the identification of subnet, we can identify the host. Okay, after identifying the host, we can able to identify the process. Okay, you are going to consider 4th step. Whenever the network is subnetted, the step number 1 will be what? You should identify the net ID. After finding this, we can find subnet ID. After finding this, we can find host ID. Then only we can identify the process. Okay, when the network is not subnetted, what happened? So no need to identify the subnet. Okay, we can identify the net ID, host ID, as well as process. Only you are going to take only 3 steps to complete all the process from where? One node into another node. Okay, suppose when the network is here, the entire network can be divided into what? 2 subnet. Assume that the entire network can be divided into 4 subnet, assume that. Okay, what happened? From assume that this is S1, S2, S3, S4. Subnet 1, subnet 2, subnet 3, subnet 4. The whole network can be divided into 4 subnet. Okay. So what is the range for each subnet? How to split the whole network into number of subnet. Again, this is another example about subnetting, right? Say for example, consider the same IP address. The given IP is 200.1.2.1. Initially 8 bit here 0005678. Like that here also we have 200.1.2.1234567 Here also the starting network address always 200.1.2. Here also we have 200.1.2. Here. Okay. This is the starting. Network address will be common for all the subnet. There is no doubt in this. After that only you should identify the subnet, whether it is what S1, S2, S3, S4. For that only we go for masking, otherwise even no need. Okay. Once we are applying the masking, we can able to identify the network address as well as we can able to identify the subnet also, right? So now initially what happened? What is the range for S1? So how many bit, if you want to construct 4 network, how many bit you are going to borrow from the host ID part? So I should take only 2 bit, because once we are borrowing 2 bit, I can able to construct what? 4 subnet. Okay, 2 bit means what? 2 to the power 2 equal to what? 4 subnet. Okay, suppose I am going to borrow only 1 bit. 2 to the power 2 to the power 1 equal to 2 subnetwork. Suppose I want to construct more than 4. I can borrow what? 2 to the power 3. 2 to the power 3 equal to 8 subnet. Okay, like that, based on our need, how many subnet is required for in our network. Based on that, I should take the bits from host ID part only, right? So if it is 1 bit, I can able to construct 2. I can take 2. I can able to construct 4 subnet. Suppose I am going to borrow 3 bit, I can construct what? 8 bit. This is the general rule for classful address, right? So now we are going to borrow 2 bit. So what happened? So this 2 bit which is used to identify what? Subnet 1, subnet 2, subnet 3, subnet 4, right? So whenever the first 2 bit is 0, 0, which indicate what? S1. Okay, the first 2 bit always 0 whenever you are going to consider what? Subnet 1, right? Then the rest of the bit of what? Which indicates the actual host ID part, right? So here 0, 6. Okay, total 8 bit. So what is the corresponding IP for this? 200.1.2.0, because all the 8 bit will be 0. Then after that what happened? Here 0, 0, again 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, which indicates what? 200.1.2.1. Then what? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. What happened? 2. And so on. The first 2 bit always 0. The rest of the bit should be 1. Okay. From 0 to 63. Total number of IP range for S1 will be what? 64 bit. 64 IP addresses. Okay. Here what happened? Here if it is 0, 0, which indicates what? S1. If it is 0, 1, which indicates what? S2. The rest of the 6 bit will be what? 0. Okay. So the first IP address in this subnet will be what? 200.1.2.64. Okay. Then next IP address in S2 will be here what? Network address always same. Here 0, 1, 1. So 64 plus 1 equal to 65. Then 66. And so on till what? 0, 1 always standard value. The rest of the actual host ID part should be 1. Then only we can able to broadcast it. Okay. All 6 bits should be 1. Okay. This is what 127. Okay, from 64 to till 127, which indicates what? S2. Now consider S3 or even S4, anything you are going to take. If it is 0, 1 means this one, then 1, 0. Okay, the first 2 bit is 1, 0. The rest of the bit will be what? Actual host ID part. Initially, always all the bits should be 0. Okay, here what happened? 128. What is the equivalent IP? 200.1.2.128. The next IP range in this will be what? 10 always constant. The rest of the bit will be what? 1. 128 plus 1, 129. Then 130, 140 and so on. The last IP address will be here. What? 10 11111161, right? So till what? 191. So again 192 to till what? 245. Here the starting 2 bit should be 11. The rest of the actual host ID part will be initially 000. Then what? 1. Okay, 2, 3, 4 means what? 100, 101 and so on. First all the bits should be 1. That is 255. Okay, this is the IP range for what? Subnet 1, subnet 2, subnet 3, subnet 4. When the network is, the whole network can be divided into maybe 4 subnet, how many bits you should borrow from the host ID part? Okay, so once I will borrow 2 bit, I can able to construct what? 2 subnet in classful address, right? So here what is the range for S1? 0 to 63. What is the range for S2? 64 to 127. What is the range for S3? 128 to till 191. So what is the range for S4? 192 to till what? 245. Anyway, from 0 to 255, but right? But already we know that whenever you are going to consider any subnet, the first and last IP address we will never use. Why? The first address mainly used for what? Identification of network. It may be network or subnet. So the last IP in S1 will be what? Default broadcasting. Here also what happened? The first IP address identification of subnet 2. The last IP in subnet will be what? Default broadcast IP address. Here what? 128 mainly used for identification of S3. The last IP in this subnet will be what? Default broadcasting. So here will be what happened? This is identification of subnet S4. Then this is the broadcast. Okay. But how many IP address can be wasted when the network is divided into many number of subnets? Each and every subnet we have what? 2 IP address will be wasted. Here 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Totally 8 IP address will be wasted. Okay. But once the network is not subnetted, what happens? Only you are going to waste 2 IP, the first address as well as last IP address. The first IP address mainly used for identification of network. The last IP address mainly used for what? Default broadcasting, right? Okay, now you are going to consider, suppose assume that here we have n number of subnet. How to identify you are going to broadcast the IP or whatever you are going to forward the packet, whether you are going to deliver to S1 or S2, S3, S4. Okay, for that we need what? Some router. So with help of router only we can route the packet from where? Source to destination. So whenever you are going to send any information, we have what? Actual message. Say for example M is nothing but original information. I have sender address, I have destination address. Okay, source address or a destination address, source address as well as destination, anything else. Okay, now the destination address may be, assume that 200.1.2.78. What happened? This is identification of what? 78 means S2. Okay, how to identify whether it is what? Subnet 1, subnet 2, subnet 3. For that I need what? default masking. Okay, but here I am going to use what? Class C IP address. Whenever I am going to class C IP address, the default subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. Okay, this is default subnet mask in class C. Okay, so once any subnet mask for any class C event, the corresponding value will be what? The host ID part always should be what? 0. Network ID part always what? 255, right? That value can be converted into binary. That value should be multiplied by the given IP. Then only you are going to get some value. Okay, that value is called what? Network address as well as what? Subnet. That's why we need what? Subnet mask given. Okay, so in this way only you are going to calculate what? Calculate from here to here. Okay, so assume that here what happened? I have router here. Router can be connected with S1, S2, S3, S4. Okay, S4. Here assume that this is a single network. The outside the router we have, outside the network I have another router. This is connected with this. Okay, each and every router we have interface value here. Interface may be for, I want to connect with S1, I need interface value will be A, S2 means B, S3 means C, S4 means D. Here I have interface E, I can connect from here to here. Okay, assume that the each and every router by default it has to maintain what? Routing table. In order to calculate the routing table we have some algorithm also. Okay, so how do you construct the routing table for this? Means first I can identify the network address. Okay, network address, then default subnet address. Okay, then what? Interface number. Interface number. Okay, say for example, consider one network here, S1 here. For S1, what is the range for subnet 1? Subnet 1 will be 200.1.2. This is common. Okay, for so the network ID is for example 10, assume that. Okay, network address is what? 0. Okay, network address is what? 0. If it is 10, this is S1 by default. Okay, subnet is common for all the subnet, all the network address. Okay, subnet is always common. Interface will be different definitely. Okay, suppose I want to connect from any router to the particular IP address, via which router I can send from this router can send the message. The message format may be here, actual message, source address may be something, destination address will be here what? 200.1.2. For example 10. For example 10. Assume that, right? Via which interface I can able to connect from here to here? Via interface what? A. The subnet will be something. Okay, I can calculate the subnet also. The subnet will be same here. Again, that is 255.255. Some value. For example 10. Assume that. Okay, the same subnet mask can be used for all the subnet in the given network, right? So via A, I can able to connect this with the help of this subnet. Okay, so once we are using this default subnet, what happened? I can able to calculate the sub network. That's why I need it, right? Then what? Consider class another subnetwork. The IP address is, say for example 200.1.2. The range is, say for example 67. Okay, this is in this diagram I have the range will be here. Okay, so assume that I have here S2, here S3, here S4. Okay, so via which interface I can connect all the hosts which is connected in the subnetwork? S2 means via interface C. This default subnet mask could be same. Okay, say for example consider any IP for S3. For example 200.1.2. Maybe here 128 to 130. 130. Okay, 130. Via which interface I can connect any node in subnet 3? Via D. Via D. Okay, then I have subnet 4. Consider any IP address in this here 200.1.2.191, 145. Assume that 145. The default subnet will be same. Here via which interface I can able to connect any IP in subnet 4 means via B. Via interface B I can connect any IP range for S4. Okay, so by default whenever I am going to connect any outside IP into inside the organization, I need interface E. The default is here 0.0.0.0. Here also 0.0.0.0. The default interface number whenever any packet can be transmitted from outside network into our inside network, assume that via interface E. Okay, this is the actual routing table to route the packet from where outside network into inside. Suppose assume that we have inside router, we have easily we can identify this is the range for S1, this is the range for S2. Everything we can able to identify with the help of what? This router itself, right? Suppose some packet can be received from outside the network means that time we need what? Some default network IP address as well as what? Default subnet mask also. So with the help of this only we can able to what? Forward the information exactly in a particular subnet. Okay, so any router because with the help of this routing table only the router can able to what? Route the packet from one subnet into another or even one network into another. Each network we have n number of subnet. So first you should identify the network, because what happened, even though we have network can be divided into either 2, 4, 8, anything else, what happened, first you should identify the network. The entire network IP address always what? 200.1.2. 1.2. Okay, because the host ID always what? Replaced by 0. Okay, directly we can replace, otherwise you should use masking. With the help of that we can able to what? The host ID part can be replaced by 0, then we can get network address. So this is the way to what? Find the IP address to forward any information with the help of this. Okay, actually the routing table is very essential. Okay, in order to calculate the network ID as well as what? Subnet ID. Then with the help of this network easily I can able to identify the interface. With the help of interface only, because interface is used to provide the connectivity, right, from router to any subnet, even router to any network. Okay, the subnet is very important concept in order to what? Easy to manage the network with the help of our admin, as well as easy to maintain the data also. That's why we need a subnet. Subnet is very important for our networking concept, right? But here what happened, already we know that this is, first we should identify the network address. So then based on that, how many hosts we can able to connect it. From that host you are going to identify how many network we need, subnet we need. Based on that we are going to borrow the bit, then only we can able to subnets. Okay, this is the actual discussion about our subnet concepts. Okay, then we will see how the subnet can be used for CADR also, that is variable length CIDR, classless interdomain routing protocol. We'll see next class.